separation of children from their parents and being placed in these facilities where they also are subjected to significant health issues from COVID and any number of other situations. But following the Civil War, one of the more common practices, and here again it was the law that says they could do it. Little black kids could be abducted by legal authorities because they were classified as either errant or they didn't have a parent with them to vouch for them. So those children were taken and returned basically into a condition of enslavement. And so I simply mention that to say that we think about things that we see echoes or shadows in from that bygone era today. We think about 1965, for instance, and we started talking about this whole thing of mass incarceration and how much in terms of the magnitude of our system of imprisonment and policing and criminalizing of people. That date, August of 1965, should loom large in our minds, and because two things happened in the fall of 1965. One, you had the Voting Rights Act. So you had this expansion of freedom and democracy by one of the most powerful statutes in the history of this nation. But within a month after that, you had the Law Enforcement Assistance Act, which for the first time expanded the federal government's role into policing and criminal justice within not just the states, but also cities and municipalities. And over time, that act became the blueprint for things like the war on drugs and a number of other, the more draconian measures that came under the other presidential administrations. So, something that Jim said, this sort of systemic operation of our so-called systems of justice as systems of oppression and control that's racialized is something that's been a part of this country really even before it was a country. So we've somehow, though, we have lied about that and hidden that from public view. So I think the importance of efforts like this is to draw that connection and make it plain. When I think about our prison system here in the state of North Carolina today, and I don't know what is 35,000 or so, and over 50% are African American. That is no accident. And then we have a governor of the state of North Carolina who fashions himself as a progressive. And he's created this task force. And he's famously said, I believe Black Lives Matter. And this task force, he says, one of the reasons that we have this task force is because we recognize that we, the black people, are treated disparately by our criminal justice system. And there are things that we can do about that. So let's think about that and make some recommendations. Somehow, there's a part of me that says, and I don't want to judge him before he's had a chance to act on some of these recommendations. But what gives me pause is the fact that he doesn't need a task force. He doesn't need recommendations to deal with Clement. He is within his power now.
Right now.
It is on his watch. He could have done something about Ronnie Long a long time ago. And he let that man sit in prison for an additional 3 or 4 years after he became governor. And he knew what was going on.
James, can we take it back? When he was the AG in 2005, he knew that they had lied. He could have done something 15 years ago when he was the Attorney General, when he knew that the police lied in Concord. He could have done something 15 years ago. So he allowed Ronnie Long to not just languish for 15 years on a 44-year, what turned out to be 44 years of his life in a wrongful conviction. But not only did he drag his feet then for 15 years, he still has not given anyone any clemency, and he still ain't gave that man no pardon so he can get the $750,000 that the state owes him for that wrongful conviction. He's still dragging his feet. So that's why we out here, Roy. That's why we're going to continue to be out here. Hell, Daniel, I might come up every weekend for 4 years. You know what I'm saying? Because until he let my people go now, I'm sick of him. Right. Now, I'm telling you now, we sick of begging you to do what you, why do you get votes? I've never understood this. You go, you campaign, and you get votes to amass power. Now you got the power. And you like, what was the whole point? What was the point? Why did you sacrifice 34 years of your life to get to this place just to be complacent when you get there? Just to not do anything when you get there. This is how you know mediocre folks been in power for a long time, Daniel. And they think that they're excellent. And we keep giving mediocre people places in our community and our society, and we praise them and we uphold them. This level of mediocrity is why we have a wall of mass incarceration, because of people just like Governor Cooper across this country who have built these systems of inequities, these systems of racialized terror. And it just don't make no sense. Why you do all these campaign funds? People spend all this money. They vote for you just for you to sit there and do nothing. That's not why we do. That's not why. Why get the power if you're not gonna do nothing with it? I thought the whole point of being powerful was be able to exercise power the way you see fit.
James, you've seen the system up close. Any response? Any ideas?
Well, I think in order for the system to change, I think it is going to require things like we're doing right now. I mean, I think we, citizens, members of the public, have to make sure that those officials know that what we have needs to be radically changed, and that we, at least the ones that we didn't put them in power for things to remain the same. The fact of the matter is, Daniel, you know this just as well as I do, it's not that people don't know what to do to change the system, to create a system that is more just and is more fair. It is that they don't have the willpower to do the things that need to be done. We don't have to have as many people circulating in and out of our jails, being held in cages in prison for as long as we do for public safety reasons. And so we need to look at, first of all, we've got too many laws. We've criminalized too much behavior.
Too many laws. I love it.
I mean, it's just too much criminalization. And so we need to scale that back. That's right. We need to look at who we have in positions of authority. And when I say that, I mean from police. I mean judges. And we have to hold them accountable. We have to call them out when they do not adhere to rules and policies and protocols and laws that we know would lead to a more just system. So, I mean, I think there are a number of things that can be done. You know, there's a question of, and some of the recommendations that are coming out of this task force are great on paper, but we've seen a lot of good things on paper before. somebody just mentioned. I mean, you know, we had the 13th Amendment, you had the 14th Amendment, you had the 15th Amendment. A lot of good things on paper. You know, North Carolina pretrial release law on paper was a decent law, but judges didn't adhere to it. And so there has to be some mechanism for making sure that people are held accountable, and that's where we, you know, I think the voters come into play. We cannot let Roy Cooper or Josh Stein, you know, get out here and say the good things, say things that they think we want to hear, but then don't enact the policies that we know need to be enacted to change this system. And they need to understand that, and one of the ways that we can make them understand that is through the ballot box. They should not be, and see, that's one of the things that I think we heard about this clemency thing. We kept being told, well, Governor Cooper wants to do something about clemency, but he's got to get through the election first because he doesn't want that to become an election issue. Well, you won the damn election. So let's get something done, because otherwise, you know, James Brown said, you're just talking loud and saying nothing. We don't heard enough about it.
You always wait for James to give us a James Brown.
Always a James Brown analogy.
No action.
No action.
He does.
So we want some action now.
Yeah, we
Yes,
heard.
right.
I mean, we ain't heard nothing. We've been here 19 days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When they called that meeting last year, Daniel, Daryl Childers. Yeah, Daryl, hey, I hope you watch this. You know, talking about, we met right up the street at the right across from, what's that museum with the big globe out in front of it? The Science Museum.
Yeah.
We sat right in there in that cafe, drank coffee, and he talked about clemency in November of 2019, and how the governor really wanted to do something, you know, but there's elections are coming up, Kristie, I was like, okay, all right. So that's why we planned this vigil for November the 4th to January the 1st, because no matter who won, Governor Cooper was going to be the governor. And we didn't want him to not be the governor because we knew that he was the better choice and the better option. But what we don't want to support is mediocrity. What this North Carolina needs right now is a leader. And leadership looks like making bold choices, even when you don't have all the support that you need from all the people that you need, because you know that that's the best thing for the people. And it's okay because you are lamed up. So what they gonna do? Who gonna check you, boo? You know what I'm saying? I mean, for real. Does he have any other? Does he have any other political aspirations after this? Because I can tell you that you're not gonna get him. You're not gonna get outvoted if you don't let the people know.
And Josh Stein need to understand that he ain't gonna be governor if he don't get off the pot.
He's getting serious.
Now where he was.
Now we're looking at the future.
Look, Daniel, put the camera on. I gotta tell Josh Stein. Pow, pow, pow. That was shots fired. Shots fired by James Williams. You're not gonna be the governor if you don't do the right thing neither. You're not. We're not taking mediocrity no more. We're not. Black people don't get to be mediocre. Black people got to be 10 times better than anybody else out here just to even get a chance. So mediocre white people is canceled.
James, you made a point earlier that I was about separations of border, and I was sitting there thinking cruelty begets cruelty. Right. You're talking about a history of racial advantage and cruelty that has just morphed into a new system. Right. And how do you stop cruelty without courage, without acting? I think that's just a really important point.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
We have to say goodbye to Kristie. She comes up here over the weekends, if not more, from Charlotte. So safe travels.
My husband came home today, so I got to go.
Go, Kristie.
James, I have one more question for you. You know, Tim talked about the importance of hope, and you know, and then you talked about you know, this sort of myth of American exceptionalism in terms of you know, this idea that we've always been a beacon of freedom, and you know, whatever the myth is, that to some extent the vast majority of people have bought into. Now, obviously, the experience of people of color would make it less likely that they bought into the myth, but the myth is strong. And so, just curious, one, does the sort of true nature of America, and as Tim said, that it was a foundational issue, and as you said, even before the creation of America, it was already an issue of exploitation. I'm curious, how do you find hope with that beginning? And yeah, I was just going to say, how do you find hope with that beginning?
Well, that's a great question, and and one of the things, Brian Stevenson is one of my heroes, and basically at the end of his speeches, he always summarizes and condenses what he thinks are required to move this country, to move us beyond where we are today, and addressing a lot of these, these critical issues. And one is, one is being comfortable with being uncomfortable, because he knows it's difficult for a lot of people to have serious conversations about race and injustice and a number of things in this country. So it's not necessarily a comfortable conversation. One of the other things that he says is most important is to maintain hope. And I think, for him and for me, that's so important, because without hope, how do you sustain yourself to do the difficult work that has been required and that is still required to bring about the society that we all hope we can have in this country one day? So it's not going to be, it's part of what I call the beautiful struggle, because it is a struggle.